What's going on, guys? Ron Parita here from Techno Buffalo, and today I have a review for you guys of the Dell XPS 159550 Signature Edition. A lot to remember there, but I'm very excited to review this laptop because it's pretty awesome right out the gate. So a couple things I want to cover are pros, cons, neutrals, and my overall impressions of the laptop. But before we get to that, first is the performance and the speed, because it is a laptop. It has to get work done, it has to get heavy-duty work done. Can it do it? So in terms of spec, you're rocking a Core i7 2.6 gigahertz processor from Intel. It is very, very fast and very capable. We have 16 gigs of RAM in this one. We have 500 gigs of PCIe SSD storage, which is all very, very fast. And we have a 2 gigabyte NVIDIA graphics card, which is 2 gigs of dedicated memory. Works very well, is very fast and very capable. I did a lot of video editing on it and it got through most 4K footage without too much problem or complication. Compared to something like a MacBook Pro, I'd say it's definitely on par, the 15-inch obviously. In some cases actually a little bit faster, I felt, because CUDA works a little bit better with Adobe since they sort of embrace that. But overall, really, really good in terms of performance. Moving on to the pros and cons, things I really like. On the front, where you have your keyboard below, the texture of the laptop is rubberized, soft, and does a great job. It's very comfortable, very easy for you to rest your wrist, type, very high quality feeling. The texture is superb. Moving up a couple inches, we have the keyboard, and this is probably one of the best keyboards I've used to date. Nothing too crazy here, good travel, very flat, great design, and just works really well. Before I knew it, I was typing very, very quickly on it without much issue or many errors, so good job from Dell there. A little odd, maybe kind of a fetishy thing that I really liked was the power button. It has a physical pressable power button, and the tactility behind it was really, really nice. Just pressing it was really satisfying, so take that for what you will. And probably my favorite thing about this laptop is the screen. It is nearly bezel-less, 4K, absolutely stunning display. Just one of the best displays I've ever seen. It is a touchscreen. I don't really use Windows 10 with the touchscreen that often. It just isn't optimized for my liking. Even in tablet mode, the apps are still desktop apps, so I'm not a huge fan of it. I use it for scrolling and stuff, but not much else. That being said, the one issue I did see with the screen, even though it was stunning, was it was a little oversaturated for my liking, especially the reds in certain colors would just pop a little too much. That is for my liking, but if you're just watching movies and doing a lot of content consumption, you'll probably like this display. It'll probably be one of the best on the market for you. Now, I did mention this is a touchscreen, and so credit to Dell because the hinge is pretty damn good here. It's very firm, and so you're not gonna have too much flex in the screen. So if you do wanna use Windows 10 with the touchscreen, if you do enjoy that experience on a laptop, you will be able to do so here without too many issues. It also has a battery indicator on the side, which is great. One button, you can see what your battery life is like. It's like on the old MacBook Pros or like on a Mophie pack. With the recent loss of the SD card slot on the new MacBook Pros, I feel it's important to rejoice having an SD card slot here, and it's a really good SD card slot. And what I mean by a good SD card slot is the way it takes the SD card and how much of the SD card is poking in or out. So I'm using the last gen 15-inch MacBook Pro as my daily driver, and the SD card sticks out pretty far, and there's always a fear of me slamming it on the side of a desk and breaking the SD card. With this, it's very solid, holds the SD card in place, and it goes in about 3/4 of the way, so you don't have an SD card hanging off the edge. Again, it's the small things that make a really good experience with a laptop like this. Ports are pretty standard here. You have 2 USB 3 ports, 1 Thunderbolt port, your power, you have a headphone out, which is also your mic in, and you have an HDMI out. So pretty much everything you're gonna need. Moving on to cons, the first thing I wasn't a huge fan of was the trackpad. There's nothing really wrong with it, but coming from a MacBook Pro where the entire trackpad is clickable, having the bottom only click here on the Dell XPS was a little bit hard for me to get used to. If you're coming from a similar trackpad, it might not be an issue, but I think they could have still done a better job. One of the bigger issues that I ran into on a day-to-day basis was not having a lip under the screen. It sounds like a really small complaint, but every day when you go to open up your laptop and you have to dig your nails under the screen to lift it up, and even when you do that, the whole bottom of the laptop comes up too, is pretty annoying. Razer's one of the few companies along with Apple that's figured this out, so to see it not here, I don't know why it's so difficult to do, is pretty frustrating. Probably the worst part of this laptop are the speakers. They're not good at all. I don't know if it's because it's under the rubberized texture, but they sound super muffled, super bass heavy, and just really not good. So I recommend you bring a pair of headphones or speakers with you. One of the biggest things with a laptop is always the battery life. According to Dell, you get about 10 hours of battery life, which is pretty on par with most laptops of this size. However, in my usage, I got nowhere near this. Bear in mind, I'm doing hardcore video editing, so I'm pushing the CPU and the GPU to its max at all times. So I ran out of battery in like an hour using Adobe Premiere. Most of you will get somewhere probably between 5 to 7 hours. If you're very, very frugal with your usage, you can probably get to that 10 hours. I never even got close. That's because of the type of work I was doing, however. expect from this laptop in the battery department what you would expect from most other laptops in this sort of region of the market. And last but definitely not least, if you're wondering what the Signature Edition means, here's what it is. It means the device comes with no bloatware, no junkware. It comes with pre-installed antivirus software for the lifetime of the device, and it means you have to buy it from the Microsoft Store. This is interesting and important because it's almost like Microsoft's version of what Google has done with Nexus devices. And right out the gate, I'm a big fan of it. I think this is how the device is intended to be. One of my biggest issues with Windows is you have to go through when you get a device, uninstall a bunch of stuff, and you run into pop-ups, and none of that here. Very smooth, very fluid experience, and makes Windows a much better pleasure to use than it normally would be with a bunch of extra stuff on it. And so those are really my thoughts on the Dell XPS 15. This laptop is mainly for people who are looking for a hardcore performance machine that looks kind of underrated. I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetic, but it is a sleeper laptop. You won't be attracting too much attention, but you can definitely get everything you need to get done. The touchscreen, if you like that, is a nice additional feature. Display is insanely amazing. And if you compare to something like a 15-inch MacBook Pro, it's considerably cheaper for similar specs and equal performance, in my opinion. You'll get it at about $500 to $700 less, depending on exactly how you configure the device. There's obviously other laptops out there, and we can do comparisons with those. If you want to see that, let us know in the comments down below. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.